first, my name is Son Sangwan, and I'm a tech lead. I have around 15 years experience in software development. I have worked in various component and technologies like database internals, clouds, SDN networkings, and I'm currently associated with uh, Sienna for past 3 years. I'm working on one product called Assembler. So it's written in Go, and my responsibilities are to provide features to this product and fixing bugs. So this is a short description about myself. Could you please give a brief introduction about yourself?
Yeah. So basically, my name is Mansi Medirata. I have been working since the past 5 years into IT. So I have in total 5 years of experience, majorly working on to Java technology itself. So I have been actually working with Cisco for the past almost 2 years from Altron. So basically, I am here working into microservices based architecture, into which we have a number of services into Spring Boot. And for the inter-service communication here, we are using Kafka, which is asynchronous mode of communication. We also have a few REST endpoints exposed in a couple of our services for fetching the data synchronously from the UI through our services. And apart from that, for the deployment and testing purpose, we are using Docker. Apart from this, we are using MongoDB for storing our data, and we are also using this Jira, Jenkins, Git as versioning tool into our project. And if you talk about unit testing part, so we are using JUnit and Mockito framework for the unit testing purpose here.
And in your resume, you have not mentioned about your education. So what you have done?
Yeah, so I'm BTech in computer science and engineering basically. I completed my engineering in 2015.
2015.
Yeah.
From which university?
So that is from UP Technical University, Uttar Pradesh Technical University.
And what was the college?
That is SRMS, Shri Ramurthy Smarak College of Engineering and Technology.
Where it is?
Yeah, it is in my hometown Bareilly itself, UP.
Okay, fine. And okay, sounds good. So, so what are your current responsibilities?
Yeah, so if we talk about the current responsibilities, so my responsibility is basically grooming the discussions and things to be implemented. We are following agile over here. So apart from that, I am majorly involved into implementation of different type of features along with unit testing and bug fixing as well.
So what is the recent feature you have developed?
Yeah, so recently, basically, we have actually developed a kind of, you can say, into our application, we have a huge number of devices which we actually manage the device data into one particular application, and then connect to those devices from different applications, and then configure certain things onto the devices. So recently we have implemented this device management feature. So we have implemented there is a service like device manager, which actually maintains a huge number of devices into the MongoDB, and it maintains their connection state along with their credentials, their ports and ports and everything. So we are actually so I have actually been involved into development of that particular service, along with, so it actually sends certain requests through Kafka to actually connect from the device. So we actually are using network service orchestrator over here, which exposes certain endpoints that you can actually hit for connecting to the devices. So this is a recent feature that I have implemented.
Okay. And you have developed in Java, right?
Yeah.
And you are using in Kafka also.
Yes, yes.
So what connector are you? How you are using Kafka?
Yeah, so basically, I would just explain it with the example that in my recent feature that I have implemented. So from the UI, like we get to onboard a huge number of devices, or you can get a single device onboarding at a particular time. I'll go with a simple example of onboarding one single device. So as soon as a add device request comes to my service, that is service A, it actually adds that device to the database with some initial connection, like waiting for connection state. Now this actually pushes a notification onto a Kafka topic, onto which we have a listener on the other service which actually connects to the device. So it pushes a notification, okay, these are the device related details and I want to connect to it. So basically that other service is actually a consumer which is continuously polling on that particular topic. It has a listener on that topic. As soon as the message is pushed onto that particular Kafka topic, the other service actually reads that message, and it actually goes to hit the device API and connect to the device and return me with response onto some other Kafka topic onto which my service is listening, and then I update the status as connected or disconnected into the database. The reason being,
Are you using any library or what?
yeah, we are basically using Apache Kafka for that, the open source library basically.
Okay.
Yeah.
So how? How? Okay. So how you are scaling Kafka actually? So what is the partition in Kafka?
Yeah, so as part of our development purpose, we were just using single partition, but right now on our cube setup, basically we are actually using three partitions of Kafka, and we have like three different services that are actually, every service has three different instances onto which it is actually running. So basically we are having three different partitions into Kafka onto which we are actually pushing the data. We have certain algorithm for that. Basically into our application we have a unique key like device ID. So we actually use device ID mod whatever, suppose there are three partitions, to push the data onto a particular partition to manage things.
So other than Java, any other language you know?
Honestly speaking, no. I have uh, basic idea about it, but never gotten exposure to work on it.
Okay.
Like, yeah.
So I have few questions related to Java.
Okay.
Um, so you know what is auto boxing, unboxing in Java?
Auto boxing and unboxing. I think auto boxing is basically, if I remember correctly, it is something converting the primitives to those wrapper object classes basically, and unboxing is the opposite of it.
Okay. And I am giving you one program.
Okay,
You just tell me the output of that.
sure.
So where I can give chat box. So you see it, right?
Yeah, yeah. This is hello world. Cite the menu. But volume is equal to 100. So, as far as I think, this will be, I think, maybe, actually, I think this will be false, basically.
Else part.
Because see, this double equal to, instead of just comparing the value that is 100, it is actually comparing the reference as well. So I think both these references might be pointing to some other location. However, in case of string, if it would have been string, this would have been actually true because it internally uses a string pool. But in case of integer, I think it will be actually pointing to different memory location maybe.
Have you heard about Java intercache?
Java?
Java integer cache.
Yes.
What is that?
Integer cache you are talking about or cast?
Yes, caching.
No, actually I didn't.
Okay, no
Use
problem.
it honestly.
Uh, so Java supports polymorphism, as you know, right?
Yeah.
So I have some questions related to polymorphism. So what do you understand by compile time, polymorphism, and runtime?
Yeah, so basically compile time polymorphism is overloading and runtime is overriding. So in case of overloading, that is compile time, like we have suppose I have a method like vehicle for example, and I have not vehicle exactly, some method. Suppose I have something like, okay, suppose I have a vehicle and I have a number of in the parameter. Suppose I have an add, for example add method, and I have like add method, one method adding two variables, one method adding three, one method adding four. So in the parameters, basically I can overload that particular method having different different set of parameters. So that will actually be overloading into a particular class. The method signature has to be different. In case of overriding, it actually comes with inheritance, like you have a parent class into which you have a particular method and you want to actually override the implementation of that particular method into your child class. So in that case, runtime polymorphism, that is overriding, comes into picture, where you actually override the parent method's behavior into your child class. So into that, basically the method signature has to be same in order to override that.
Can we overload static methods?
Overloading of static methods, okay, that will be static, and you can actually I think with case of, no, I don't think we can actually overload static methods.
Okay, and can we override?
Overriding of static methods. No, because static is something that is associated on class level, so I don't think we can actually override that.
So can we override private method?
No, because that is specific to a particular class, right? If that will be specific to your parent class, and you cannot actually access it into your child class.
Okay. So I have some questions. So I have given you 4 questions, 4 or 3.
Okay.
One second. You tell me the answer of first question first.
Okay. Actually, this chat window, let's just scroll. Okay, so you have a class demo inside the main. You are calling this test method 1. Test method and passing 1 into it as a byte. That is static as well. And you are actually taking it as is okay. This is overloaded, is it? Mm, I think the first one will actually, give an error because the compiler will actually be, you can say, kind of confused between the two because you are taking byte and short basically.
So I didn't get actually what is the ambiguity in this one?
Because you are passing one, right, and this is byte and short. Basically they have the memory allocation difference. I think byte can take maybe one uh, one byte and short will take two, but these are of similar type basically, because of which it will have ambiguity.
Okay. Um, it is partially correct. Answer is correct. Okay, but explanation I'm not um, satisfied. Okay, but the answer is correct. That is right. It will give compiler error. What about second?
Passing null. Okay, it is a long and it is an integer. Null with long and integer overloaded methods. Okay. Will actually I think it will also give error because we are actually passing null and we are having long and integer. So it is quite similar to the similar problem that we had in the previous program.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Yeah, this is correct. Okay, and then what about third one?
Third one is the hash map demo public sector.
Okay, let me some text is back to me.
New hash map of string integer. C dot
1
get
second. Let me. It's now complete.
this fourth one you are talking about?
No, third one. So some part is on this one in fourth one, like system print ln integer. So some part was missing.
Okay, okay. This third one is actually you are having a hash map of string integer. In case of integer, you are putting a null and you are doing a c dot get a. Into a test method, you are providing null. Okay. Uh, Test method, you are providing null. That means integer.
1 second.
Sure. Integer. compilation error, because this I can see here in the fourth one there is a kind of this method that is taking number as a parameter, but number
No,
is
what you told about third one?
just a second.
That hash map.
Hash map, if I'm correct, this third one actually you are passing it, okay, you are passing null to here. This fourth one starts, okay, fine. So there is an integer and there is a long. I think this will also have compilation issues, because in the test method you are actually doing a c dot get a, which is actually null, and again the overloaded methods are basically having long and integer basically. So they are also of same type with different memory sizes. If it would have been something like float or something like that, then it would have compiled a string maybe. Now moving.
And fourth one?
Yeah, fourth one will have compilation error, because I think here in the parameter you are using number.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Fine. And some more questions I have.
Sure.
Let me make some. So you tell me the answer for first one.
Just a second. You have a demo class into which you are doing a shape s is equal to new circle, calling draw method. Okay. Class shape as a draw method. Circle extends. Okay, this is private actually. We are trying to call. Private draw reference of parent. So I think this will actually print shape.
Shape.
Maybe, yeah. Or maybe it
Okay.
is a, yeah.
And second one?
Mm, this shape s is equal to null and you are doing s dot draw. So this will actually give null pointer exception. The second one will actually give null pointer exception.
Okay.
And for the third one, basically you're doing s dot draw and you have a new circle. So it is public static, it is okay. Static void draw, and you are doing. Again, since this is static, this will not be actually overridden and shape will be printed.
Okay. So you have worked on collections.
Yes.
What are the collections you have worked on?
So I have majorly worked on array list, linked list, set, and majorly tree set, hash set. And apart from this, apart from collections, I have also worked on map as well.
Okay. So How does hash map work?
Yeah, so if you talk about the working of hash map, so as soon as suppose you, it basically contains key and value. So as soon as you do a put on the hash map, so it actually calculates the hash code of that particular key, and it does a mod by capacity. Initially the capacity of hash map is 16. So it does like key, whatever hash code is there, mod 16, and it lands up, suppose it will land up between 0 to 15. So if it lands up, suppose for example on the second bucket, so it will actually create a node on the second one. Before creating, it will check using equals if there is some similar key there as well. If it is there, it will replace the previous one. If it is not there, it will actually create a new node of linked list basically.
What is the difference between hash map and hash table?
Yeah, so a hash map is basically non-synchronized, whereas hash table is synchronized, which means that hash table is actually thread safe and hash map is not thread safe in nature. Apart from this, hash table cannot have null basically, whereas hash map can have one null key and multiple null values.
Okay. I have few questions related to Kafka.
Okay.
So, what is the consumer group?
So consumer group is basically, you can say, you can configure a consumer group into multiple consumers that are reading from a particular topic. So if suppose the consumer group of all the consumers are same, that means that if that message is read by one consumer, it is supposed to be read, and the zookeeper will actually increment its offset to the next one. Whereas if consumer group of all the consumers are different, it will not increment the offset until unless that is read by all the consumers.
So, can a consumer read from more than one partition?
No. Actually, it can, just a second. Consumer can read from more than one partition. Yes, I think yes, a consumer can actually read from any of the partitions. At a time, it will read from one partition, I think. But it can read from any of the partitions. Suppose there are three partitions.
Okay. What is the role of zookeeper?
Zookeeper basically maintains the metadata that is there. So it actually internally maintains the offsets and all the number of topics and till where actually particular consumers have read that from that particular topic. So that is basically the function of zookeeper, more or less.
Can we use Kafka without zookeeper?
Okay. I think, it is like using the Apache Kafka, that is not possible because Zookeeper internally maintains. You can use it, but then it will have, you know, different behavior. If you want, you can have your own customized library in place of Zookeeper to have the similar kind of behavior. Otherwise, if Zookeeper is not there, then there will be ambiguity with all the offsets and everything, so they will not be incremented at proper time.
So, you have worked on Docker also.
Yes.
So, if a container, how will you enter inside a container?
uh,
What is the command?
okay, so that is docker exec hyphen it, and you have to provide the container id, and along with that you have to provide bin bash.
Okay, how many states a container be? What are the states of a container?
States of a container,
Like it is running.
yeah, like usually it is, I mean, maybe in running state, it can be restarting. Like we provide a restart tag into Docker Compose, restart on failure or always, whatever it is. And one will be, I think, created. And apart from that, it can be maybe I have never seen that state, like paused is can also be one state.
And what is a volume?
Volume. Volume is basically something like, suppose from like you can say you are running on a machine and you have some kind of folder which you actually want to mount or copy into your inside your Docker container. In that case we basically provide the volume inside this.
And how can you mount volume?
For that we actually in our application we actually provide that as part of Docker Compose file. Into that we provide a volumes tag inside the whatever image container is there, and inside that we on the left hand side we actually provide the place where you actually want to mount, and on the right hand side we provide from where it has to be mounted, like whatever is the path on your VM basically.
Okay. One question I have related to STM. Do we need OpenFlow in STM?
Actually, I'm not very sure about it.
Okay. No problem. So I will give you one programming problem.
Okay.
So would you be happy to write code for that?
Yeah, sure.
Okay. So you can share your screen.
Yeah, sure.
And I'm pasting problem here.
Yeah, so is it visible? Well, as far as I understood the problem, so basically into this, n will be the number of elements that will be present in the array, or you can say the size of array. S will be the sum which we have to find by adding continuous elements in the array from one index to another, and the output has to be the start index and the end index.
Output would be the okay, yes, correct.
Yeah. Yeah, so I was just thinking how to do this.
So you remember that index is not zero base, it's starting from 1.
Okay, sure. I'm just keeping a sample here. Okay, so
You can skip reading from input. You can just directly assign some value and then.
sure. I think it will be something like this maybe. I'm actually I'll just explain the logic. So I'm actually doing it from starting it from first index. I is actually the outer loop, and inside j I'm doing an I plus 1. That means it will always move from this particular location for the first iteration. it will keep on. So this initially this sum array I have taken as 0, and then this integer sum I have taken this first index basically at this point of time, and then I am actually at j I am actually incrementing it, adding all these j elements here, array of j. And then suppose if somewhere this entire thing matches, so in that case I am just updating the start index as I and end index as j, and simply breaking from this loop because this sum matched, and I'm just simply printing the start and end index over here.
Okay, can you run the program?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, so now it is correct. Actually, that was reading from this particular index. So I started it from 0 and appended and added 1 over here.
So why did you start from 1?
I didn't actually check that, honestly speaking. I was just writing the code, so just forgot to do it. So while debugging, I got because it actually starts from 0 itself. This has to be I plus 1.
Can you replace the array? You give me this code on chat box.
Yeah, sure.
Okay. So what will happen if the sum is not there?
If the sum is not there, I think okay, that in that case it will actually print 0 0. That is an issue. Let me check what behavior you wanted.
Okay, that's fine. We can consider 0 0 as a not found. Okay. You change the array with a new input. Another input you have, right? I
Yeah.
have given on chat box.
Yeah, sure. So start index is properly updated. End index is also properly updated. Then why is it not printing it properly? Okay, it is actually going inside this loop as well. I'm just modifying the code a little bit over here because it is again going into this loop, so we actually have to break from this as well, right? So I will just do, instead of break, it will return. Okay, it didn't actually print anything. Fine. To return. So before returning, actually I have to print this thing because otherwise it will not work. Yeah, now it is fine.
Okay. You bring it there on your original place.
Okay. Here is it? Okay.
Yes, I want to print here only. How can we do this?
Okay. Can I add this entire logic within a method?
Hmm?
Can I add this logic inside a particular method that gets called from here and then I print it?
Not an. If we want to make changes here only, then how can we do that?
Okay. Mm,
I don't want return statement at all.
okay.
Let us first remove this return statement. Now write some code so that we can come to the end. And it should exit both loops.
Okay. Um, so you don't want a return statement basically.
Mm.
Without a return statement, you want to do it. Okay, then maybe we can have some kind of flag basically. Mm, inside the for, I can actually check for this if flag equal to 0, then only I proceed ahead with my logic, right? And here I will just update this flag equal to 1 and I'll just do a break over here. So this will actually exit from this particular loop and flag is updated to be 1. So this check will actually fail at that particular time, and after the iterations it will actually print this.
Okay, run it.
Yeah, so this is how.
Okay. So you have time. Can you write another program also or not?
Yeah, sure.
You understood the problem?
Yeah, I just had one query doubt over here. Like what I understood from the problem is, suppose here I will be like given an array. So I will have the, just a second. Yeah, so there will be I and there will be j. So I have to actually check if a of I is less than a of j, then I have to actually do a index minus, I mean j minus I. Right, so here it is like fine. It will be like 1 is less than 10. So it will actually give 1 minus 0 is equal to 1. But I had a doubt in this one basically, like see, there are 9 elements over here. So if you check in the first one, this is 34, right? And the number basically greater than or equal to this is this one, right? 80.
1 second. Let me open the problem.
Yeah, sure.
Yes.
Yeah, so if you consider this as suppose index, so here if you consider this 34 as the element, then 80, then this condition will be satisfied by this 81, right? But I don't understand why they have taken it as a of 7. So this is basically a of 6.
See this. You see, check the. We have to find out I and j.
Yeah.
Difference between two. So you see here. This one is 0th position, right? And
Yes.
10th is on 1st position.
Yes.
Right. So 1 minus 0 is 1.
Yeah.
So because this is there are only two elements, so difference between only 1 minus 0, right?
Yeah.
Let us take second example. So 34, 8, 10, 3, 2. So you see the smallest element, that is 8.
Okay.
That is month position, right?
Okay.
And 33 is on 7th position. So 7 minus 1 is equal to 6.
Yeah.
So we are printing 6.
Okay.
So basically what you need to find out, you have to select two elements in an array, and the first element should be less and then the another element should be greater than that, but that should be the maximum length.
Okay. Okay. Okay.
Because you can choose here 10 and 80
Okay.
also, because even our 34 and 80 also, right?
Yeah.
Because 80 is greater than 34. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So length would be only fifth. Because this is
Yes.
0. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
Yeah.
5 minus 0 is only 5.
Yes. Yes. Correct.
So you got understood the problem now?
Yes. Yes. Got it. And then I think this was. Yeah. I think it will be something like this maybe. So we will be like usually we find like for example the minimum element like that we can actually check we will check the max diff for all of them and print at the end.
Do you think it will work?
I think so that it will work. Shall I just try running?
Right.
So I got 1 over here for the first example and for the second one. Yeah, I think 6 is the answer, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay. You give me this program.
Yeah, sure. I'll just remove this one. This was from previous code. That's okay. Yeah, I have pasted it on the chart.
Fine, Mansi. That was a very good interview. Do you have any other question for me?
Yeah, I would just like to ask, what kind of a role and technology stack basically you guys are hiring?
So actually, we are working on OTN, that is OTN technology,
Okay.
and we are using latest technologies like Kubernetes, Docker, and languages we use Scala, Kafka we are using,
Okay.
and we also use Python in our code and Go language also.